This is Learning to Dad
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
with Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
Hello, welcome to Learning to Dad. My name is Tyler Ross, and today I'm here with Chris Campbell. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, man, this is great. Really appreciate it. Been looking forward to coming on this for a while. This is, I think we've been trying to do this for a few months now, but I keep running into things like overtime.
Yeah, so, right, working hard.
Yep.
Well, I remember specifically meeting you for the first time. I don't know if you remember this. I was in line getting ready at the town hall, getting ready to speak on behalf of the Walker Drive project.
I do remember that, yep.
And we got to chat briefly, and I immediately found you to be like super welcoming and kind. And then the more I get to know you, you're just freaking interesting. I mean, like, so much that we've talked about, like, there's so much more, because I was looking through your Facebook feed, and I'm like, all right, you got two boys. I know you've talked about being in finance before. I know you've talked about racing motorcycles or dirt bikes. I saw that you were nominated for a life-saving award as you're working in the Warrenton Police Department.
Yes, sir.
You're a pastor, and I did not know, but apparently you're hell on the drums too.
I like to, I do. I like to play drums every now and again, but yeah.
That's and on top of that, one of the times we get together often for this Boys and Girls Club Christmas thing that Lindsay and Forston and I get, and that you've been so gracious to participate in. And when you started talking to those kids in a group, I was just in awe at the way that you commanded their attention in such a, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I feel like I don't have that in me. It was just you ease and just know how to speak to them on their level, and I was just totally inspired by that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the kind words, and man, it's been since I moved up here from Harrisonburg. I used to live in Shenandoah County. Moved up here from Harrisonburg in about 2008, 2009. And man, the opportunities to get involved in the community here have just been unbelievable. So I've made it a point in my life to really make the most out of every single opportunity. And if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna give it 100% while I'm doing it, best I can. And it's served me well. And man, the opportunities just keep coming. I love it. I have a blast. I try to have just a fun life, and you have to. My line of work, you just gotta have fun. So.
Yeah, and this is coming from somebody who was shot in your line of work.
Yes, yeah, that was quite an ordeal. We're coming up on a year now.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's coming up on a year since that happened, and very thankful for the community that really rallied behind me and my family when we were going through all that. Scary time. Don't ever recommend getting shot. It doesn't feel too good.
Yeah,
so
well, I was
scary.
following it in the paper really before I got to know you, and still getting to know you.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to having that conversation with you. One, how it impacted your life, because it's such a traumatic.
Oh yeah.
It peaks. It spikes the meter in a lifetime. And then also just clear up some gossip of what people said happened and who it happened to and where it happened.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to talk about.
No problem.
So as you know, the purpose of this podcast is to talk to people that I perceive to be like really good parents and also really great and dedicated at what they do in their job, and finding the ideas that allow people to try to do both.
Fantastic, yeah.
So
I'm insanely humbled that you thought of me, and very thankful, man, and it means a lot. Yeah. So hopefully it give you a little bit insight in how I do things, and man, I keep learning.
I believe you got nothing but wonderful things to share, and people will draw a lot from this. I'm already confident. But
yes, sir.
I like to start with a little bit of background. So you grew up in Harrisonburg, Shenandoah County, like.
Yep.
You were there until you were how old?
I moved up here at 23. Okay. So born and raised in a little place called Ware's Cave. It's about 10 miles south of Harrisonburg. Everyone knows Harrisonburg because of JMU. Grew up, I got two little brothers, the oldest of two little brothers, and man, I had a great childhood, man. I really can't. I wish and hope and pray that I can give my kids the same childhood I had, because I had everything, man. I had we raced motorcycles, I played drums, had parents that fed us and supported us, and took us to the lake every weekend to, go jet skiing and tubing, and it was just a blast. Had a really, really, really good childhood, and, things happen. My parents ended up separating towards the end of my high school year, and, basically I had a ride to go to Liberty University to play drums. I was very involved with my church, and I wasn't able to go after my parents split. So ended up staying back in Harrisonburg instead of going to Liberty at 17. Graduated at 17. Blue Ridge Power Sports gave me a full-time job as a salesman there, learning how to talk to people properly. And really, I'm grateful at that age because I learned how to manage money. I learned how to speak confidently to people and communicate and work on those communication skills. But at the same time, it was tough. After my parents left, I stayed at the house. It was me and my brother, and I worked full time to basically keep the place afloat. I paid the mortgage. I paid the electricity bills. And there were times where he and I would, sit around eating mac and cheese in the dark because we couldn't afford to turn the electricity bill on. And those were tough times at 17, 18 years old. And I think that's kind of out of those hardships. I think that's really what drove me to what I am today and why I approach things the way I approach things. Because I never want to go back to that point. I never want to go back to that time where I'm like, sitting on a floor in the dark because I can't afford to do it. And really it's really pushed me to want to help people that may be in that position.
Did you have people help you?
Not really. I mean, I had the people at my work that were obviously supportive of me and trying to, help me out as much as they could. And I owe them a lot. But everything ended up working out. A few years after that, got a great relationship with both my parents now, and brothers are doing really well. They're all still back in Harrisonburg, but I met Charity, my wife. She was a student at JMU when I was at a church down there helping out. We got together, and then I came up here to help her dad launch a church, New Hope Church. They meet over at Highland School now on Sundays.
Okay.
Man,
which is packed.
Yeah. And did that for about 5 years, and it was great. And I just since early teens, I just felt this call to work in law enforcement. And I ran from it for years.
Yeah.
I would try a little bit, and then it wouldn't work out. I wouldn't get into the agency I was trying to get to, and I kept trying and I kept trying and I kept trying. It just wasn't working. And so I never gave up. I mean, it was I applied to different agencies from 2008 to 2015, and then gave up in 2015, and then was finally okay, I'm just going to let this go. This is a dream that just didn't happen. And I remember sitting in the hospital up at RMH after my first son was born. Mm-hmm. And I remember he was sitting, he was in his little bassinet, brand new baby, and I'm in the corner. Just, I couldn't get it out of my head that I needed to fill out one more application, and I did. Yeah. And so everything started working out real well, and I got an opportunity with Warrenton, and it has just been a blast since, man. And I think that I may not have been ready back in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
So keep learning, and I think what it is it just all built up. So whenever I got the opportunity, the floodgates just opened, and I just let the town have everything that I could give it. Yeah. And really tried really, really, really hard to do everything I can to be a sponge to mentors around me, but also do what I can to help elevate everyone else around me too. So
I want to jump back a minute from 17 to 23.
Yeah.
You had a wonderful childhood. And forgive me if I'm reading too much into what you said, but you said you get along with both of your parents now. Was there a period of time in there where that wasn't the case?
Yeah, that was tough.
Was that their fault or your fault?
Well, and I won't go too far into it, but there was a time period for about 4 or 5 years where I didn't talk to my dad.
Yeah.
Didn't talk to my dad. A lot of things happened in the background that the people don't really need to know about, but some things happened. And, of course, that rocked my relationship with him. Didn't talk to him. I felt almost like mom kind of abandoned us a little bit, and I just felt abandoned, and it was unfair probably a little bit to feel that way because I know that my parents were trying.
Yeah.
But I was so mad at the situation. It was just I channeled it, you know, and I turned everything I had to work.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you know what? I got to be a man now.
Yeah.
If they're not here to help, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buckle down, and I'm going to grow up. I'm going to be a man and put the big boy pants on and just do it. And that worked out really well for me. Yeah. It really did. I mean, it developed me into, I would say, kind of a type A personality, but an empathetic one. And it just gave me the drive and the work ethic that I needed to help push me to where I am now.
So I don't know that there are going to be a lot of 17 to 23-year-olds listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
But if I could ask you to put yourself as that person again, is there anything that, you know, parents who are not reconciled with their kids or, you know, having an experience like that, is there anything that you would have liked to hear from your parents that maybe another parent could say to their kids to try to close the gap and start a relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's a great question to ask. Basically, if I could encourage parents to do anything, it is so hard as a parent, and I'm thinking this now as a parent, but it is so hard as a parent of a teen, to humble yourself enough to look them in the eye and say, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. You know, I can't imagine what that would be like. You know, put myself in my parents' shoes to do that, but that's what I needed at that time. Yeah. You know, eventually I got it. Mm-hmm. You know, and
you were ready to hear it.
Yeah, and I think I was ready to hear it throughout that whole thing, but I don't know that they were ready to give it. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
You think parents that have that kind of relationship with their kid or lack of relationship is a result of pride or not knowing?
I honestly think my parents felt like they let us down. Yeah. And I think that and maybe some embarrassment there. Yeah. I think that definitely some pride. You know, my dad is a great man who will do anything for anyone. Yeah. You know, one thing that I think he's always struggled with is putting himself first, right? You know, that being said, I think there is just one part of him that he does keep to himself. Yeah. You know, and that's some of that pride, and I think it's tough. I think it's tough for him to humble himself, and really, it's a hurtful thing. Yeah. For everyone involved, all of it, that whole thing was just extremely hurtful. So we as humans, we run from hurt, fight or flight, right? So we run from it. It's easier to just take it slow, go day by day, you know, and think to ourselves, okay, we'll work on this over time. But I think the thing that was the worst was days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, months turns into years, and you lose all that time. So
I would parents, you tell them do it now.
Do it now. Don't wait. I mean, it is going to be so hard. Yeah. But and also don't worry about asking for outside counsel. Like I'm a huge fan of counseling. Yeah. Bring someone else in that you guys trust that can sit down with you and have those hard conversations. Your children. I mean, that's blood, man. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. You know, to have those conversations and to open up those avenues of communication so that you can reconcile, so that you can have those relationships that I think a mother-son, mother-father, you know, father-son should have. Yeah. You know, and that's what I only hope to do with my kids is keep encouraging them, keep loving them. Yeah. You know, and keep supporting them emotionally as much as I can too.
When I was about, I want to say 16 or 17, might have been 15, I had a breakthrough with my dad. Yeah. And it came with tears and a lot of crying. And did you have that experience when you reconciled with your parents?
So, I mean,
I'm getting at vulnerability and masculinity and generational differences. Like, my dad's dad was different than my dad is different than me. Like,
yeah. For me, it was there was a point, and I want to say it's probably 2007. You know, my dad turned to alcohol right after the divorce, you know, in 2004. So he got pretty involved with the bottle. 2006, 2007, he almost died. He had liver failure. They found him unconscious in his apartment. I mean, and I remember going to the hospital and seeing him in there, and he was yellow. And that's what happens kind of whenever you have liver failure and you got alcohol and you know, life support and the whole thing. So I think that at that point it was like, okay, this just got real. There is no more days. There is no more weeks. There is no more months. There is no more years. I mean, it is like right now we got to fix this because, I mean, he's going to die, you know, and I don't want to, personally, I don't want to live the rest of my life knowing that, okay, I could have helped foster that too.
Yeah.
You know, it takes everyone. It takes people on both sides. Perfect relationships aren't 50-50. They're 100-100. You know, sometimes it's going to be 80-20. Sometimes it's going to be 90-10. You know, sometimes it's going to be 0-100. But yeah, that was it for us. I mean, after that happened, I mean, it was like we started to open up avenues, and it was like, hey, you know, it's like, hey, Dad, how you doing? You know, how you feeling better? Blah blah blah, and then that turns into laughing and joking around, and then that turns into reminiscing, and then it works.
That's awesome. So, jumping back to where you were leading up to filling out that last application, what do you think was the obstacle for those 5 years of applying?
Well, I mean, I think just in real practical senses, there was a time where I've got a letter I still keep from the state police because I really wanted to go work for state police, and it was due to the current economic climate, you know, because back in 08 and 09, everyone was on a hiring freeze, and I think that was a lot of it. I know, and this is just me being as transparent as I can. I know with like Prince William, I tried with them a couple of times. I got letters from them that said there are more qualified applicants. I have no military, I have no college. Yeah. Basically, I'm a nobody, you know, right? But my only hope was, okay, let me just get in front of somebody. Let me talk to somebody. Let me explain my story. And I promise you, if you let me do that, it'll want you to, you'll be inclined to give me a chance. Just let me try it. And I got that chance. And I sat down with Chief Battle at the time and told him, and I think he saw it. I think he saw, he's like, okay, all this kid needs is an opportunity. Just let him run. And he gave it to me. And it was, you know, it wasn't easy. I had to work my ass off. Yeah. Still do. Sorry for the language. But, you know, and that's just what it is. I mean, I think that we tried really, really hard to push forward. I knew what the calling was, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Yeah. So.
Well, so were you working in finance at the time that your first son was born?
Yeah. Yep. I was working at Rosenthal Wealth Management in Manassas. Great group of people, and man, they just loved on me. Yeah. Fully supportive. From the minute I started working there to the minute I decided to apply, I think they were obviously very bummed out that I was leaving, but still very supportive to this day. Yeah. So much so that my wife now works there.
No kidding.
Yep. She now works there, and that's our family, you know, and so, you know, it just helps. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned in my life is to surround yourself with people that will support you, both in your job, in your family, in your personal relationships. You know, I don't think that this transition from normal work to police work would have been nearly as easy as it was had I not had that support from them. Yeah. You know, and, you know, because I'm no different than any other officer that just starts. There were people in my family that were absolutely against it. I had people telling me they were praying against it, you know, and that's tough to hear when you got something that you want to do so bad. So, yeah.
Well, I'd like to think that it was more for you and not against your dream.
Oh, man. No, it was like, no, we're praying against it because we don't want you to get shot or killed, and, you know.
Yeah, thanks for nothing. You got shot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
So, talking about transitioning, like, how'd the introduction of your first son affect your work? I mean, I get you transition careers at that point into one that's probably more demanding on your time and more demanding on your body, probably more, I can only imagine, more stressful when you come home and tell Charity, like, here's what I did today. Yeah. Like, how'd that, talk about the introduction of your son to your life and then, you know, tie in
how that impacted everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a second, honestly, and give a shout out to any single parent out there because I can tell you this much. I could not have done the work that I did at my last job and even beginning here as a single parent. Like, I look at some of the you know, female single moms out there that are doing it at day in, day out, working full-time jobs. Some of them are even in school with multiple kids. Yeah. Dads out there, same thing. And it's like, man, like I every time I think I'm having a hard day with my two kids by myself, I'm like, okay, You are not struggling.
Especially the ones that are single because of a horrible tragedy.
Yeah.
That they're dealing with the loss on top of the demands.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think that once Judah was born, there was a change in mindset for me. It was like, okay, I'm doing this now not out of self-service now, right?
Yeah.
His impact on my life made me feel like when an officer says they want to lay their lives down, or they'll be the first ones to answer the call when something crazy is happening. That is very true, but that is even more if you are a parent.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you start thinking about all the kids that are in there. Like I wouldn't have a hard time. Well, let me rephrase this. We worked a traffic crash today. We had a vehicle get T-boned. In the back of the car, there was a 2-year-old boy, properly secured in his car seat. Everything was done. The airbags full deploy. I mean, this truck got T-boned so hard, and it moved it from one lane to the other. It got hit so hard, and as soon as I was walking up to the car, I could see through the window there was a silhouette of a car seat, and my heart just sunk. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, please let this kid be okay, and open the door, and he's totally fine. 2 weeks ago, there was a rear-end collision right out here in West Shirley where, a truck ended up in the back of a sedan that had 2, 3-year-olds in the back, properly secured in their car seats. I highly recommend that. Public service announcement, right?
Yeah. Use your car seats.
Yeah,
go to the
use
fire
your car.
department
Oh
if you
my
have
goodness.
to.
Go to Warrenton Fire. Go get them to put it in right and take the time to do it. Their lives are worth it. But when Judah was born, I felt even more that call to go and serve people and to protect people, because I felt the connection that as a dad, you're holding him in your arms. It's your whole world, and it's like you want to stop everything, And for me, that bled over to my work, right? And so it was like, as much as I loved working at Rosenthal doing finance, it was like I need to get out and actually help people and go hands-on with people that are in dire emergency and that are struggling with something. I mean, you only call 911 on your worst days of your life, right? Why not get in there and be that positive influence in that someone's worst day? You know what I'm saying?
That's amazing.
And I was like, if I have these feelings of protection and being this father figure and just holding this little precious baby in my hands, if I can help another parent, help their kids in those situations, or help people in those situations, be empathetic, be sympathetic, feel it all, and really get out there and try and do something good in the community from a police standpoint. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, you know what? We got to do this. Like I've got to do this, and it was scary because at the same time, it's like, okay, I don't want to get shot, killed, and then have to leave this little guy too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that protective nature that I think all of us as men and dads have was even swelled up even more when Judah was born. That bled over my want to be a cop.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So that's how that impacted. It was great.
I'm gonna give another shout out to WPD, because when my son was about 1, we thought he was having a seizure, and it happened a couple times. He shook uncontrollably, and one of your guys heard on the radio that his son had seizures before it was that empathetic, like, I need to be there to talk these parents through this because I've been there. And like, you don't think about that being a police officer. You think about the speeding tickets, parking tickets, car crashes, and I just couldn't be more grateful to that person for calming us down. Ultimately, he was not seizures and everything's fine.
Right.
But
I think the thing
it was just so important he was that thoughtful.
Yeah, I think, and we have a young department. I think I'm one of the older guys on patrol at 32.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think we got a lot of early 20s guys, guys that don't have kids yet, and it's coming, and I'm so happy for a lot of them. But I could tell you, man, my biggest thing that I wish I could communicate to the community is that we're cops. We are held to a higher standard, but at the same time, man, we are human.
Yeah.
We have kids, we have families, and when we hear something like a traffic crash, possible entrapment with a child in the car, I'm telling you, I don't know any dad in our department whose heart wouldn't sink a little bit thinking about that and go, okay, we should get out there and do something. And same with the fire guys.
Yeah.
You can see it. When they get on screen, the urgency to get in there and make sure everyone's okay is unreal.
Yeah.
This community has no idea how fortunate they are for the people that serve at the ER, at the fire company, at the police department, the sheriff's office. What Sheriff Mosier is doing over there is unbelievable. Those guys are doing great, and it's just a good time. Good time to be a part of this community. So
that's awesome. So you've got 2 kids, 2
I
boys.
do.
Yeah. How old are they?
4 and 2, Judah and Maverick.
So,
Judah and Maverick.
And what are they like? Are they like their dad, their mom?
I would say Judah's probably more like his mom. He's a little bit more emotional, although I would say that probably some of my coworkers would say I'm emotional. But he's a little bit more emotional, a little bit more sensitive. But he is the most caring little boy. I mean, he will hug you. He loves running around church and talking to people and grabbing their hands and just being really excited. And he's my best friend, man. Yeah. I mean, I love him to death. And 4 years old, he's testing the limits. You know how it is. So it's awesome. And it almost makes you wonder. It's like, man, did I do that stuff at 4 years old? And I'm like, I probably did way worse. So, and Maverick is 2, terrible 2s. Yeah. So he is really starting to figure out how to use his words and throw temper tantrums. And he weighs almost as much as Judah does at 2, as Judah does at 4. So he's a tank. Strong. But same thing. I mean, he will cuddle with you. He absolutely loves his dad. He's a daddy's boy, and Judah's more of a mama's boy, so it works out. So they're great, man. And of course, she wants another one. So
is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Boy.
She wants a girl.
Might have to listen to Brian DeCastro's interview. Who's done 1,000 vasectomies.
I'll make sure she gets on that.
I talked to Jesse Straight, who's got 7 kids. That's.
Could you imagine?
I can't imagine.
Oh my goodness.
It's amazing.
Dude.
But it's a lifestyle.
You got to go get a van.
Yeah.
Got to get a van. You got to go get a loan take out a loan for grocery bills.
Right.
How do you feed 7 kids?
Yeah, well, he's got a farm, so
that's true.
Which goat or cow or chicken do you want today, guys?
Right,
Pick
but
it
how
out.
do you I think the thing that amazes me with these families that have 5, 6, 7 kids, it's like I work a ton of hours, right?
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with the church, and then I do a lot of special events for the police department in town. Mm-hmm. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But I know what it's like to make sure that you're giving your kids the appropriate amount of emotional input.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you do that with the demands on your time?
Right. And at for 2 kids, and I'm like, am I doing enough?
Yeah.
And then I look at parents that are doing the same stuff I'm doing with 5, 6, 7 kids.
Yeah. Like superhuman.
It's unreal. It's like, how are you doing this? How are you finding time to sit down with each kid and putting in that emotional input and comforting them when they're hurt or encouraging them when they're learning and all that stuff? How do you do it? And it's just like unbelievable to me that you can see in the kids that they're absolutely loved, that they're absolutely have those parents there, and it's inspiring.
Well, there's been a pretty consistent theme on this conversation, and I don't know if it's been apparent, but I perceived it to be that suddenly people become much more structured and much more scheduled and much more ritualistic and creating habits, because your time changed so much from what was probably very 9 to 5-ish, to being 12-hour shifts off. How do you manage to give your kids that input with that demanding schedule?
Yeah, I think not to crack a joke for all my church folks out there, but I call it the word they like the most in 2017, 2018 is the word intentional. Yeah. So you got to be intentional. It's like that was their catchphrase.
I love that.
So, for me, I think you have to make a decision that you're going to be intentional about spending time with your kids, and that's really doing it. Putting the phones down. Shutting the world off. Don't think about work. Don't think about anything else. Think about taking that Lego man and making him the bad guy so that your son can be the good guy with his. Yeah. See what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
And you've gotta be a regimented, adjusting human. Okay, so for me, My day starts out about 4:30.
Yeah.
Every shift. So I get up about 4:30. I do a little bit of light reading, have my quiet time doing my light reading, get a little bit of food in my system. Pre-workout, I'm in the car, I'm at the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, I get my hour workout done. By 6:30, I'm at the police department. Clean up, get dressed, get my gear on, make sure my car is nice and tight and straight, make sure my uniform is nice and tight and straight, make sure I've got all the objectives I need to get done for today written down, voicemails, emails, everything done. And then I get ready for roll call. Sergeant Moran comes in, gives us very, very detailed stuff that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you run through the day. 12 o'clock, or 12 hours later, 7 o'clock on the dot. If you don't get held over, make sure you come home. You got to be intentional about that time you get home. You get home, you walk in the door. And I'm not perfect at this, but this is what I strive for.
Yeah.
Walk in the door, and it's family time right from the get. It's like you put the phones down. As much as you want to get home and get caught up on Instagram and Facebook and do all that, put the phones down, put the laptop away, hang out with family, find out what's going on with the wife. How is her day going? How are the kids doing? And then, for me specifically, kids go to bed, I jump right into schoolwork because I'm a full-time student. So
you're a student as well.
Full-time student. So
on top of all those.
On top of all this. So
what are you studying?
Criminal psych.
Okay.
So full-time student. I'll spend 2 hours or so doing schoolwork.
Yeah.
I'll try and get as much as I possibly can done there, and then I'll try and hit the bed by at least 10, at the very latest 10:30.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I have to push it to 11 or 12 if I'm not done with my schoolwork, if something's due at midnight or whatever, and then start all over.
So have you had that ability to be regimented?
No.
Or how did you start that?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I grew up as a kid as a completely, in regard to this kind of stuff, lazy, irresponsible, do whatever I want, play video games. I'll put it off until the last second. Not until I really started doing a lot of reading and listening to a lot of audiobooks. I read a book called Total Focus by Brandon Webb. He's Navy SEAL. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend it for men and women of all ages. It will change your life. And it just talks about having that laser focus to not just what your end prize is, but also totally focusing on the small steps that will take you to the next step, and everything keeps building. The other book that I read that really, really changed a lot of the way I do things was Extreme Ownership.
Jocko Willink.
Jocko Willink. Yeah. And once you read that book, your life will never be the same if you really read it, for sure.
Yeah.
You start to realize as a dad that, oh my goodness, I'm responsible for life.
Yeah.
And that is, once that hits you, and it's like, it doesn't matter if they get hurt and it's not your fault, guess what? You're still responsible for it. Mm-hmm. And you got to, as a man, take responsibility. And that's why I try and tell my coworkers. That's why I try to tell people at church. That's why I tell friends of mine. It's like, it may not be your fault. Mm-hmm. Something happens, right? But at the end of the day, if that happened under your watch, guess what? You got to be a man, take responsibility for it. Yeah. And once you realize that a lot of what you're doing is your responsibility, that weight starts to shift your priorities, which then starts to shift the little details in your life. You start to have good anxiety about little different things that really matter. How my son talks to someone at age 9, 10, and 11 is going to be directly affected by how much time I spend with them now at 4, 5, and 6, right? And I know that now. I wouldn't have had that thought process, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So, yeah, I'd say those books really helped me just be intentional about my time. And I'm not perfect. I fail at it all the time. Sometimes I oversleep. Sometimes I come home and do get on the laptop, and I have to catch myself. And it's like, okay, put this away, hang out with the kids, and
I'm sure Charity's a helpful reminder on occasion.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she's like, come on, let's, and I'm telling you, as a guy that puts in the hours that I do at work with the town, and then being a full-time student and being at the gym super early and just doing all this, there are days where you just want to come home and sit in front of the TV and do absolutely nothing and pick up an Xbox controller and just hang out.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably the thing too, is that you have to be intentional about your time for you, self-care. You need to pick a time to make sure the kids are somewhere else. Make sure, it's just you at the house and you're just relaxing in the quiet place and just relaxing, hanging out with the dog, doing nothing. Or if you get your energies from your kid and that helps, take them with you.
How about your faith or being a pastor? How's that inform your habits or your being a parent?
Yeah, I would say that, one of my favorite verses, you got to do everything like you're doing it for the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that to me has carried me through my job. Because, I don't have to tell you this. There are times where someone royally pisses you off at work, a supervisor or, command staff member, and then it's like the last thing you want to do as a human is to do any more for that person.
Sure.
Right? But I ingrained it in my heart and in my soul that no matter what I do, I'm going to do it as if I'm doing it for the Lord. Mm-hmm. And in doing that totally takes away everything that a senior person could, do to affect your work ethic, because it's no longer about them. Mm-hmm. You want to, the human side of you wants to spite them, wants to, do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you realize that, okay, what I'm doing is a direct reflection of my faith and my faith in God and his love for me, mm-hmm. That makes you want to try even harder, and to be a good dad. Same thing. It's like, how can I emulate what my Heavenly Father has done for me, for my kids? Mm-hmm. If they're doing something that's really, really making me mad, does God punish me for it? And then I would say no. Yeah. I don't see my God as a God that is a punishing God. So for me, it's like, yeah, I want to discipline my kids, but I'm not going to show hatred towards them. Yeah. I'm not going to show violence towards them, because that's not what God does to me. Yeah. He certainly lets me make mistakes. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I got to do the same thing. So that's been it. And then also I got friends at church that have just been rocks to me. Yeah. My pastor, Ben Clock, has been great. And Noah, pastor's there, and Pastor Daniel Floyd's been great down to Life Point, Fredericksburg. And I go to the Culpeper campus. Obviously, my father-in-law has been a great pastor, a big influence in my life over at New Hope. So, yeah, I think that it just goes back to what I was saying, was surrounding yourself with people that will help elevate your abilities as a dad, as a father, as a worker. You do those things, everything else will fall into place.
Did you find that you had to drop people that were negative influences? Yeah. Was there a way that you went about doing that, or identifying who those people were?
Yeah, that was tough. And I think at the end of the day, if you're in tune with your surroundings, mm-hmm. I think we're all deep down wise enough to know who's good for us and who's bad for us. Yeah. You just need to separate yourself. I call it the 10,000-foot view theory. Mm-hmm. It's like you're talking to someone comes to me and asks me for advice. Happens all the time. They say, hey, this is what I'm going on, but I really like this person and blah, 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 and I don't want to break up with them. And I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying, and I can't imagine what that's like, because I've never gone through that. I would say this. Take your situation, go 10,000 feet above it yourself, and look down on it. And let's say, detach yourself. You don't know either one of these people. What would you do? Oh, I'd tell her to break up with him.
It almost seems too easy.
That's your answer.
Yeah, it's hard to choke that down.
It is.
When you're in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like you got to look at your situation and go, okay, these are the toxic people. And for me, one of them was a pastor.
Yeah, really?
And that was very tough.
Yeah, so you got to give people permission to separate themselves from, their leaders, their mentors, or people in positions to be that.
It's very tough. Yeah. And friends, family, mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm not saying you ever have to completely cut someone out, never talk to them again, banish them away from you, send them in exile. I'm not saying that, because I believe that as humans, we have the ability to reconcile with everyone. Yeah. And that being said, I do think that there are specific things that you can do as a person, as a man, and as a woman, is to get in and maybe build barriers, mm-hmm. maybe build guardrail. I love the guardrail theory. It's like, okay, this person is still in my life, but they're in my lane right now. I'm going to merge this way and put them on the other side of the guardrail. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I won't go out with them anymore, mm-hmm. On Saturday nights and do the stuff that I used to do. But how about instead, I keep talking to them via text, via, Facebook, and then I invite them to church, or I invite them to this community event, and I, invite them to serve in the community in this way or this way, and let's see if we can change landscape
that
of our
sounds
friendship.
like you being intentional, not just in changing the landscape of your friendship, but trying to help them regardless of friendship.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I think a lot of it is a setting. You know,
Mhm.
it's like, you know, if you're friends with a bunch of alcoholics, then you're more susceptible to being an alcoholic. But if you get out of it,
Mhm.
keep loving them.
Yeah.
But you have to be intentional about your actions around those types of people.
Hey, what's going to be interesting is when our kids are like 7, 8, 9 years old and they hang out with the great other 7, 8, 9-year-olds, but
Yeah.
their parents are idiots.
Oh,
And we got to
dude,
hang out with
I
them
can't
anyway.
imagine.
It's gonna
I just like
happen.
I know it's like you almost wonder because like we're at that point now where it's like we're thinking about putting Judah in school now, and it's like, okay, where are we going to put him? And it's like, man, what are some of these parents teaching their kids? Is this going to rub off on my kid?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I think that if you're rooted in your non-negotiables, you know, for me, non-negotiable for me is to, you know, treat everyone with kindness and to genuinely work as hard as possible at whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a non-negotiable for me. And I think if you instill those non-negotiables, if you decide what they are and then instill those principles into your children, that'll build a bubble of protection around them. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. And I've seen it. My father-in-law did that with all three of his children, Charity, Hope, Faith. Yes, that's their names, Hope, Faith, and Love. He did it with them. Yeah. You ever realize that?
She has 3 kids.
Three girls.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Charity's the oldest.
Mhm.
Charity and Love obviously go hand in hand as wording. The middle child is Hope.
Yeah.
Obviously the favorite. And then Faith is the youngest one. So Faith, Hope, and Love, Charity.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, man. All right, we're back.
yeah. So, and he did that. You know, Pastor Barry did that. I think he instilled those principles in his kids. Charity went to a party school at JMU. I think it protected her.
Yeah.
You know, I know what I know of Hope. I think she was unwavering in a lot of things that she went through in her life. And Faith, too. I think she was exposed to a lot of things in her life that the world had out, public school, stuff like that. And I don't think she wavered from it because she had good parents that instilled those principles. And I can only hope to do the same thing.
I think that bubble is basically a reflection of the example that the parents set.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, for perfect example, one of my best friends, my brother-in-law, Jeremy Staggs, he's got 2 great parents, Randy and Amy. They really instilled in Jeremy at a young age to be kind and do that. Mm-hmm. There's a story I love about Jeremy where he had the reputation as a kid of going and finding the kid that was sitting by himself.
Yeah.
And sitting with him
That's
at lunch.
amazing.
And it's just like you look at that and you're like, darn it, those parents did a good job.
Yeah.
And I can only hope to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I want. You know, it's like my kid right now, Judah, I love it because he goes around, he grabs hands, walks people around at church, gives them hugs. And I'm like, okay, I think we're on the right track. You know, we got it's a work every single day. You can't let up, right? And you got to pray a lot, and you got to have that faith that, you know, God's going to protect them, and you got to be patient with them. They're going to go through stuff. I feel so bad for some of the stuff that I put my parents through.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I was not a good kid. So, you know, but you know, it's I think you just got to make sure that you got to decide what your non-negotiables are, what your principles are as a family. Once you've done that, instill those principles into your kids. Work hard. For me, you know, it's work hard, love people, you know, walk in integrity, and I really believe that's carried us. So, has it been perfect? No, but that's what we strive for.
Yeah.
Aim small, miss small. A specific target will get you a specific result. We're just going to do that.
I love that.
So.
I've told a couple people recently, you know, if you don't know what your goal is, find out what it is, clarify it, and it'll be easier to accomplish it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just running around aimlessly.
I love. I can't remember exactly what book I was reading, but they were talking about goals. Set it and forget it. So if your end goal is set your goal, know what the direction is, have that ingrained in your mind, meditate on it, fall in love with it, then forget about it.
Okay.
Once you know what your goal is, then focus on your now.
Yeah. Detach from the result.
Detach from the result.
Yeah.
Think about, okay, because then what's going to happen is you will have that in the back of your mind, right? Okay, so this next opportunity, is this going to serve my goal or not? If it's not, move on. Yeah. Is this going to serve my goal or not? Is this ultimately going to be there or not? You know, same thing with your kids. You know, I want my kids to be like what Charity and her sisters are. Everyone knows them as loving, giving, just absolutely magnetic, personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want my kids to be that way. So is isolating them, putting them in front of a TV all day, not letting them hang out with other kids, is that going to serve them? No.
Yeah.
So you know what? On my days off, instead of going at 4 o'clock, I'm going to take them to the gym with me.
Yeah.
They open up, they open up at 9, 10. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to put them in the kids' care area with all the other kids,
Mm-hmm.
play with them, expose them to other kids, and have fun,
Yeah.
and then take them back out.
Yeah.
That's being intentional. That serves our end goal.
Yeah.
Same with church. Getting there early, putting them with other church kids that have, like principles. It works.
So, yeah, I like to reverse engineer things. Like, think, what do I want people to say when I'm dead?
Yeah.
Like, what do I want to? Yeah, it's nobody on their deathbed wishes that somebody thought they were more of a jerk.
Right.
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 Or wish they worked more, or spent less time with their family. So
Right.
reverse engineering. Hey, this is Tyler Ross here. Thanks for taking the time to listen to part 1 of our interview with Chris Campbell. The next question I ask him in part 2 is about the gunshot wound he sustained during a training exercise as a police officer, as well as getting into a lot of the short answer questions that you may become accustomed to by now if you've been listening to the podcast. So thanks for taking the time to listen to part 1. I hope you enjoy part 2 just as much as I did. I learned so much from Chris in both halves of our conversation. So thank you again, and check out part 2.